in my on-premise environment and give the accessibility of the same to the users from home. This is something which is going to be a good point of concern, because I might not have that much of infrastructure. I might not have my data center designed to serve such heavy computes for all my users to work from home. That is something where your Windows Virtual Desktop actually comes in, and this currently is one of the highest selling technologies on Microsoft Cloud Platform or across any other cloud platform when it comes to remote working or seamlessly granting access to the user so that they can make sure that complete productivity is given in spite of working remotely, working from home. When it comes to working and doing business remotely, as I said, this situation can be the best example for any kind of a business, for any vertical of organization and any industry that the users are trying to use their systems from. Because when I want to have my users working remotely, it will not only be applications and data, it will be even my resource provisioning, it will be my hardware, it will be security, it will be compliance, and a lot more. While doing all of these, the very first thing that I would want to consider is, in what situation should I actually go for a Windows Virtual Desktop environment? See, Windows Virtual Desktop cannot be something, or WVD or a remote working environment cannot be something generic for all of them. It will vary depending upon multiple factors. The very first factor that I would want to talk over here about is the security and regulation factor. So when it comes to remote working, there will be a next level of requirement altogether in terms of security that will come up from organizations who are probably from financial organizations. You can say organizations which are coming from a banking industry, government organizations, healthcare industry, pharmaceutical industry, your stock exchange, and those organizations where the data is extremely sensitive and business critical. This is one vertical that we need to evaluate while enabling remote working to the users. The next would be the type of workforce that I might have. See, today, you are not always going to have dedicated employees working in your organization. You might have some external contractors, you might have vendors, you might have auditors, you might have some users having explicit rights to work from anywhere. So your workforce in today's date is going to be extremely volatile. It is not going to remain limited to users coming and connecting in your environment and only then they will be working. No. Also, when these different categories or these varied types of employees will try to access your organizational data, they will probably access over any kind of an operating system, over any type of a device, may that be a mobile device or anything. They will be probably trying to access or they will be trying to give a reachability to your IT infrastructure. Maybe if it is a call center, maybe where you have a technical support, where you have users giving 24/7 assistance to the end customers. And you also will have users who might be connecting from different locations. Like, you are not going to actually push your data center across multiple branches. You might have your data center located at one place and then small offices from where the users would want to access the data. And while you have organizations from different verticals in the industry, different types of employees trying to access over different types of environment, the last fundamental that you will have is different types of requirements for these users. Maybe a database administrator or somebody who is doing data mining is going to require some really extensive storage on the workload that he might try to access. Maybe a user who is doing some kind of engineering or some kind of diagram working and stuff might require some systems with heavy GPUs or heavy graphics and animations. And maybe somebody who is a hardcore developer, probably trying to build an application by writing codes and stuff, might require systems that are really high performance in terms of memory. So when I have to facilitate my workforce across different locations, outside the office with the applications, with the type of resources that they demand, it is going to be really challenging, or probably I can say next to impossible, to scale so much of it in an on-premise infrastructure. That is the reason why Microsoft has come up with something called as Windows Virtual Desktop, which is probably, you can say, an extension to your cloud environment, an extension to your on-premise environment, yet working from where you are. Windows Virtual Desktop gives you an explicit leveraged feature of Windows 10 multi-session. Now, when I say Windows 10 multi-session, let me explain in a very layman's language. You have a Windows 10 machine. I take an RDP of that machine, you will be signed off. This is a single session Windows 10. It is only WVD for which Microsoft has specially designed and released a Windows 10 multi-session operating system version. Meaning, you place Windows 10, and from that one instance itself, you can have multiple users connecting depending upon the requirement of their hardware resources. Enable optimizations for Office 365 Professional Plus. You can have the complete suite. When I say Pro Plus, it is the complete Office 365 suite that will be available on WVD. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access, OneNote, OnePath, Skype, Teams, SharePoint, whatever. It has got an extremely seamless migration strategy from your on-prem TS Web or RDS environment to the Azure WVD. And lastly, let's say, for example, today you have an environment which is capable of handling 50 users. Tomorrow you need an environment capable of handling 100 users. It is going to be configuration which can be done in hours and minutes. And tomorrow, if you feel that you want to scale down and keep it only for 25 users, you can again do that in minutes. So upscaling and downscaling of resources is something which you can do in minutes when it is WVD. Virtualization, as I mentioned, today is of two types. One is where you have your RDS services. RDS services is, you can say, something which has got multiple sessions, Win32 based application support. Perpetual Office, that is an Office license for TS Web with Office Professional Plus, and LTSC for your Windows 10 operating system. So it is long-term servicing channel which receives updates not again and again. They are directly pushed out after a particular span, maybe say 2 years, 3 years, however. And the second part that we have is Windows 10 for Enterprise, which as of now has single session. It supports Win32 and Universal Windows application, Universal Windows platform based applications, Office 365 Professional Plus, and semi-annual channel based release. So when I say semi-annual channel based release, I'm talking about rings, update rings being released every 6 months. And between this is where Microsoft has come up with WVD, giving you the experience of a server based remote session on a Windows 10 operating system with Office 365, with Win32, Universal Windows platform based applications, completely customizable, getting it 100% under your security and compliance, integrating deeply with your on-premise applications, with your on-premise Active Directory, controlling it with group policy, and a lot more. Citrix plus Windows Virtual Desktop was something which was earlier available, and Microsoft was at a very well stage, promoting its collaboration with Citrix in order to offer some kind of services like this. But today, WVD takes the lead because it is in today's date the cheapest solution for remote working that Microsoft is offering. Why WVD is such a super fantastic feature, or something which is a really good item to deploy on the cloud platform, is for a simple reason. You have Microsoft 365 integration completely. So today's date, you might be aware, in Microsoft 365 you have Intune, you have conditional access, you have ATP, you have Azure information protection, you have your granular roles that you define like RBAC, you have multiple identity managers, you have Azure Active Directory based security tools, and a lot more. To your surprise, all of these can be used to manage the virtual sessions that you get over your WVD. Second advantage, it uses Azure Compliance in place. Azure Compliance in today's date has more than 90 compliance offering, which is the highest across any cloud provider in the IT industry today. May that be AWS, may that be IBM, Bluemix, AT&T, Bond, GCP, anybody. Azure is the leader providing the maximum number of compliance offerings today in the cloud market. More than 3,500 plus global cybersecurity experts. This is something in the backend infrastructure of Microsoft, a team of experts who are continuously working to harness and to make sure that your environment is totally secured while you are accessing it publicly. 6.5 trillion global signals daily in terms of accessibility, in terms of tickets, in terms of securing the environment, in terms of notification. And over and above this, Microsoft is investing $1 billion annually on cybersecurity to make it the global leader in terms of making your environment the secure most environment to work from anywhere, ultimately enhancing remote working altogether. When you collaborate all of this with Windows Virtual Desktop, you are extending the environment to get integrated with your Azure Active Directory and utilize the best possible authentication methods, and connecting it with an Active Directory environment to control it using group policies, to give them access to your on-premise applications, to do some software level customizations and whatnot. When we talk about Windows Virtual Desktop, it was in September 2018 that Microsoft announced that they would be coming up with something like this. In March 2019, they released the initial preview of offering of a WVD as an environment. July 2019 was somewhere where Microsoft actually started investing on the data centers and expanding the potential of the global infrastructure to support a WVD environment. September 2019, Microsoft released it generally worldwide. And time since then, if I talk about today, every month there has been consistent upgrades. There has been a consistent innovation that Microsoft has done in making WVD the most seamless solution that can enable you to work remotely. I will be showing you a glimpse of what kind of enhancements have come across on your WVD platform. Earlier, these services were available only in certain parts of the world in terms of the physical presence of Azure data centers. They have actually started coming up with new locations. These new locations are not only in again in dispersed parts of the globe, but they are coming up probably across all possible data centers wherever Microsoft Azure can scale them. And there are many more coming up on the roadmap. One of them is in even your Gulf region, which is not updated over here in the chart. There is some in India, and the rest of these regions are already being developed, and one of them is coming up in South America. So yeah, availability today is in US, it's in Europe, it's in India as well, it's in Japan, it's in UAE as well, it's in different other parts, different small parts of South Africa and stuff. On the roadmap, you have it Brazil, Asia Pacific, India has already started, and Australia as well. What exactly made WVD so beautiful in terms of a feature as a must have feature for the end customers? When it came to RDS, it was always a cost factor because of the CAL licenses, the infrastructure, the servers that I need to invest on. And each time that I need to make sure that a new user is being added, I need an existing instance available for him to access it. So there was no much scope of upscaling and downscaling unless I add new servers to the infrastructure, license them, buy the new licenses for users, etc. Security was always a concern. When it came to WVD, as I told you, security was something that Microsoft harnessed completely and got it integrated with M365 and Azure. When it came to the accessibility of the users, WVD became one of the most seamless product to be used across any kind of an operating system, across any type of a device, any display resolution, whatever you want to. And lastly, making your cost go down by nearly 63% as compared to what you might be paying in your on-premise environment. So at a cost which is 63% lesser than my on-premise infrastructure, I get all the features of working from home on a desktop with the licenses included, with the best possible security and compliance in place, yet optimized to serve my users to the best possible potential. The good part is, in today's date, there are many customers who are already eligible to use WVD. They need not procure additional licenses to enable their environment. Customers having E3, E5 or A3, A5, customers having F1 licenses, customers having software assurance with Microsoft, customers who have student benefits, customers who have Windows 10 enterprise licenses, who have Microsoft 365 business even, are by default allowed to use Windows Virtual Desktop. Customers are eligible to even access Windows 10 virtual desktops and Windows 7 virtual desktops if they have some specific level of licenses as mentioned over here. What I mean to say over here is, Microsoft already mentioned earlier that Windows 7 is coming to an end, but considering WVD and letting more and more customers use this, they have extended the support for Windows 7 for another period to make sure that users then start having that buffer of migrating to Windows 10 as an environment. Windows 10 virtual desktops are now supported on thin clients as well, meaning you can deploy them on Windows 10 IoT Enterprise, you can deploy them on iGel, and also WVD is coming up with Linux SDK for extending services even across a non-Microsoft operating system platform. The best part is, as I told you, the more and more the number of users start accessing WVD in your environment, the more workloads or resources that get demanded by the user, the more is auto provisioned in the backend by Azure to make sure that none of your users get a compromise on the quality of experience while using WVD as a product. When I talk about WVD in Azure, another main reason why I would say that adoption is really going to be, you can say, the biggest advantage for any organization today is majority of the infrastructure is managed by Microsoft. So you can say your entire product design is taken care of by Microsoft. Your entire resource management is taken care of by Microsoft. High availability, uptime, SLA, everything is to be met by Azure and Microsoft collectively. What you only manage is the type of operating system and the number of users with the type of licenses. That is it. Great. If I want to do remote working, probably without an infrastructure being under my management, this is the best solution that we have today. Of course, there is a list of prerequisites that you need to have in place, like Active Directory and VPN connection to your on-premise, etc., and synchronization with Azure environment. But once you have all of that in place with some basic requirements on the Azure front to store the user profile data, you can seamlessly start enabling WVD for your users with the necessary permissions that you might have in place. This is just a quick walkthrough of the kind of steps that you might want to run in order to enable WVD in the environment of the customer. You can simply start by probably giving a pool of Windows 10 sessions or a dedicated personal session per user. It uses HTML5 client to connect to the desktop of the user. You start deploying remote applications. Use the Windows client to connect to the remote application. Windows client in terms of the remote connectivity client. And lastly, you will have to just do one complicated thing. I would not say complicated. This is something that we already have in our on-premise, that is collecting all the user profile data at one single location, which forms the repository to issue profiles to users who are trying to access their environment through WVD. WVD, again, in remote working solutions, is today the one to offer the best Windows experience in terms of any location, in terms of any device, in terms of the bandwidth that it might consume, in terms of the audio, video, visual experience, and a lot more. The reason behind that is it supports the complete operating system family across any type of device, and at the same time, it also supports thin clients, as I mentioned. Summary of the features that are offered by your WVD as a service across different types of operating systems, wherein majority of it is available for Windows, web, and Mac operating systems. Of course, on Android and iOS, you have limitations, but they are continuously improving on the same. The very most important feature that we would want to talk about over here is dynamic resolution. So when I say dynamic resolution, it will automatically adjust depending upon your screen size. For example, you try to probably restore it, the window size goes small. You try to drag and drop, your window size gets adjusted accordingly. And then lastly, you try to cascade it, and the cascaded window also accommodates accordingly to make sure you are not compromising on the experience while accessing WVD. Support for multiple desktops, multiple monitors while you're trying to do some kind of projection or multiple display connectivity. You might want to do video calling and stuff. It's all possible on the WVD platform. When we talk about Microsoft Teams support, like we might natively think that, okay, I might have a virtual machine where I have Teams and everything enabled and installed and stuff, and I need it locally installed on my device as well, and then only I can access it. Nothing of that sort. No need of installing it on any of your devices. Just map your Microsoft 365 suite with your WVD, and Teams will be available over there directly. And then you will be directly able to do calls, something like this. This means while you are trying to access everything on the cloud environment, it will simply have something called as a redirection to your actual physical device camera or audio or the USB to make sure that those devices are accessed and you can perform the calls, you can perform all sorts of video communications as seamlessly as you might be doing on a physical node. Client administration, as of now, I would frankly say that you should keep it limited to doing it through the web or through your Windows devices. For other devices, it is still a little native, I can say. When I say native, you will definitely be able to manage everything seamlessly, but there will be certain limitations for which it will definitely require you to go over the web and do it. WVD improvisation, as I said, Microsoft is continuously innovating on the WVD platform. Here, I would say that it's just getting started. Reason being, as I said, in September 2018, when initially they announced the release of WVD and when the environment was actually being provisioned, things were something that you will now see to your left, and what you see now, what currently WVD is something that you will see to your right. So earlier, my rendering of image was something that I see to my left, where my frames per second is like maybe 10 to 12 frames per second. But over here, it was at least 40 frames per second, like 38, 39, maintaining an average to make sure that you get the smooth most experience while accessing the WVD. May that be at any speed. This is the kind of enhancements that have come when it comes to WVD at the initial stage when it was in public preview, and now when it is generally available for all the users. Multimedia playback. These are again those pain points that always a customer would want to evaluate to make sure that, okay, giving an access of a desktop to a user just from anywhere in home shouldn't be just for the sake of it, should also be seamless. What you see right now is, I mean, this is something that was at the time of the public preview. When you actually see your Windows Media Player over here having a CPU utilization spiking up to nearly 30%, but still giving a performance which is not up to the expectation of the user. But now that I talk about for a multimedia playback which has got an enhancement added, and the way it is available in the general availability version, it is something like this, where your Windows Media Player is going to utilize processor nothing more than 3%. Still, you have the video just because of the frames per second being so seamless as if it is being played locally on your desktop. So this is, I can say, one example, guys, to prove how you can enable remote working, still not compromise on the user experience, and still have the best of security and compliance falling in place. To get started with WVD for your end users, for your end customers, you simply need to start off by asking a couple of things like, for what kind of users are they trying to enable this? What are the types of applications that those users will be accessing? Why are they, or if they have a typical method of doing so in their environment, then what is the reason behind having that method followed? What conditions are required to access the corporate resource? Like, do we have any kind of a multi-factor authentication in place, or do we have any kind of a new authentication module altogether in place? Am I actually utilizing the cloud features? Like, as I mentioned, a lot of your M365 customers are already enabled to you know access WVD and have it enabled in their environment. How many of them actually even know this? Probably I can say a 10 or 20% of ratio should also be more, because customers are not actually aware of the features that they can use across a platform like this. What controls are required based on the condition? Like, are we even protecting the accessibility of the users? Have we ever defined any kind of a module that defines what happens when the user will access it from his personal device, or what will happen when the user is going to access it from a corporate device? All these questions will help you collect enough information to design a solution using WVD or without WVD, whatever suits to the customer. And over and above all of these, not to forget, you will definitely have one question to ask, which should always be the last question. How much are they spending to have these kind of enablements done within their environment? When we talk about WVD, there will be a lot of things that you might have to look into, as I mentioned over here. Just a little backward. Sure. As I mentioned, like, how would you actually start deploying Windows virtual desktops? There are going to be a hell lot of steps that you need to go through, but this is a one time task just to enable your environment in the right manner. There will be a lot of stuff that you would require as a part of the prerequisite to start WVD as an environment. Again, not too much, but yes, a couple of things. You will also have a couple of application based fundamentals that you might have to have in place in order to have WVD up and running. So at any point in time, with regards to things that you would have to or you would want to do for Windows Virtual Desktop, you can definitely get in touch with us. We can do an end-to-end deployment. You can just get in touch with us at Redington. We can do an end-to-end deployment of a Windows Virtual Desktop for you or your end customers. Showcase the solution to them, do POCs and assessments to make sure that this is the new normal. This is not only for a COVID-19 situation, guys. This is something which is going to be the next generation of the digital culture, where I want more than 75% of my workforce to work from home and save on the cost that I might be incurring on them while they work physically from being into the office. That was just a summarized environment of WVD understanding. Coming over here, I would want you guys to actually come up with some questions that you might have, and I would be more than happy to answer all of them so that you probably have a better clarity on how actually it works. Oh, one more question, please. No, nothing. Okay. So thank you guys. That was it from my end. A short summarized walkthrough of WVD, and I hope you guys have had a good time understanding these aspects. Stay home, stay safe. Make sure you can get back to us for WVD solutions or anything with regards to Azure, and we at Redington will be ready to help you for it. Thank you so much. Chanakya, over
Thank
to
you so
you.
much, Ronak. Thank you so much, Ronak, for a wonderful session. Just one request: if you could just broadcast your email ID in case anyone wants to reach out to you personally, they can do that.
For sure, I will just share my screen and broadcast my email address
You can
over.
actually just go in the Q&A tab and just go and broadcast message,
Yes,
and
I'll
you can
just
type.
broadcast it over there. Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
perfect. So that way, if anyone has to reach out to you, they can do that easily.
I have broadcasted my email address in the Q&A tab.
Perfect, perfect. All right, Ronak. Thank you so much for a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.